Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started here with our Truetone Cs-6 power supply install. It's a relatively straightforward install. It actually comes with a pretty cool little template here for installing the power supply. One of the problems I did have with the template is it does not account for the size of the power supply. It's great for where the holes need to go, but it kind of made this installation a little bit trickier. Those 3 screws right there correspond to the 3 screw holes right here on the card. Sorry, I'm holding a lot of frame. You see your screws right here on the card. Now that bar directly beneath my finger presented a little bit of a problem later in the installation. One of the issues with this template that it comes with is it does not account for the side wall of the power supply. So you want to make sure you give yourself about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch of play if you're right up against something. Now this power supply did come with a bracket. The bracket wasn't going to work with this particular power supply. The reason is it's a low profile power supply. So it's too short. Also, the way that this bracket would sit, it would cover not only some of the outputs for the pedals, but also the incoming power. So we're just gonna have to go ahead and drill through the metal. If you've never drilled through metal before, there's a couple of things you can do to make it easier on yourself. The first is get a powerful drill, whether it's a corded one or one that has a fully charged and powerful battery. The next is make sure you're using a drill bit that's up to the task. Whether it's a brand new drill bit that you don't mind sacrificing, or an old one that you're ready to use for its last time. Now you might have noticed that there is a very dead spider which slightly resembles a facehugger alien on the side of this board. I did not cause this spider any harm. He was dead when I found him, and I want to assure you he died like he lived. On this board. The purpose of this board is simply to protect the top of the desk as the drill bit comes to the top of the pedal board. Having resistance makes it a lot easier to puncture the metal. Now another thing you can do is you can use what's called cutting oil. Now cutting oil is a lubricant which helps disperse some of the heat and makes it easier to cut through metal. I'm using a relatively old drill bit because I don't want to ruin one of my new nice ones. Another tip to me, now it's pretty easy if you look, that's only about 3 seconds of drilling. So it shouldn't take a lot. This is an old beat up drill bit. If you use a new one, it's going to go a little bit easier, but it's going to dull that drill bit. So if you watch each of these holes, there's only about 3 to 5 seconds of actual drilling. Make sure you have a firm hand on the board so you don't lose it like I almost did. And it should only take a second. Now all this is being done in real time. Now one thing that's important after you drill like this, you want to make sure that you go through, you want to clean up any metal shavings, you want to clean up any burrs, you want to make sure you're cleaning up your workspace constantly. You don't want to get any metal shavings or sawdust into the power supply itself, so it's good to constantly make sure you have a clean workspace. And I went ahead and I kind of cleaned out those drill holes. I'm going to see if it lines up here. Now it doesn't. So we talked about before how that bar on the bottom keeps this top one from being able to reach. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to ream this out. You might notice I've switched to a larger drill bit. It's also a little bit nicer and newer and sharper. Now when I said I wanted to ream the hole out, I don't want to expand the entire hole. I mostly just want to lengthen it. I only need to go up, like I said, 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch to get it to fit, and if I make the hole too big, I'm going to have to use a washer to get it to fit nice and tight so the screw doesn't fall through. These power supplies come with a really cool second set of screws, which are flat on top, which will make a little bit less surface area when I put my Velcro on top. I'm all about those flush fittings. You might have noticed I've been drilling at an angle. The goal with that is just to make sure we're only really going one direction. After we've made what looks like it's going to be enough of a hole, we want to make sure we take a second and clean it out. Sometimes you get a little bit of a lip that develops from the metal being cut away. You can clean that up with a file, or you can actually use the drill to take that lip off and then come back through with a file or some really heavy grit sandpaper and clean that up the rest of the way. Just be careful not to get any into your fingers. The total elapsed time on the recording of this video was initially about 6 minutes and 15 seconds for me to install the power supply, and then about another 6 minutes for me to widen the hole out and actually get it onto the board. That's pretty good. You would expect it to take a lot longer. You'll notice we didn't use fancy drill bits, we didn't use cutting oil, we just used a really strong drill and a little bit of willpower. I hope this video demonstrated how easy it was to install the power supply. Even if you've never drilled into metal before, it can be really, really easy as long as you set yourself up for success. I would definitely recommend both the CS6 power supply and this Soyam pedal board, which was a steal for $50 on Amazon. Alright, with that slight modification, you can see that this now lines up. It sits in there nice and tight, and it lines up with all the holes. We didn't have to ream it out too much. We had a washer, and it actually fits nice and tight with no wiggle room. So we're going to go ahead and call this one a success.